Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Thursday, and all of our guests today brought to you by our friends Al Christmanson and company at the beautiful Whistler Golf Club. The other day, I think we have visuals of this, but maybe we can introduce it sometime. But there was a cub, baby bear,
baby
that helped somebody get a hole-in-one.
Yeah. Do we have the audio video?
Well, we don't. We don't have it right now.
All right.
Those are the kinds of special things that happen at the Whistler Golf Club.
Yeah. Beautiful place.
Joined now by Farhan Lalji from TSN, as always, on a Thursday. Farhan, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm good. You know that bear is actually Big Al Christmanson's pet, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He just,
got
they
three
hang
of
out in
them.
the back. Yeah. So I got to get up there this year.
Oh, do I hear free golf?
Yeah.
I know I've got Al on speed dial. That might have to happen.
Oh, we know. Hey, Farhan, I know it's been a few days, but just your takeaway.
So, by the way, hang on, listen, before we start.
Yes.
This is the first time ever that we have actually started the segment on time. Any idea why? Quinn Taylor producing, maybe?
Oh, right.
Quinn's in charge, so maybe that has something to do with it.
At 10:15, I got a text saying we're going to the break, and I'm like, what? Like, Henderson, you're 10 minutes early.
Yeah. Everybody thinks
thanks,
it's me that has problems with time management, when in reality, there's somebody else in this room that's to blame. And I thank you
true. That is so true.
For pointing that out.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been a while. I realize the Lions play tonight in Winnipeg. Which is your takeaway?
Rick's favorite team.
Yeah, from the Grey Cup champion, or soon-to-be Grey Cup champion again, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But your takeaway from Saturday night, and I would say a special season opener for the BC Lions.
Yeah, look, it was a great event, and Snoop, the concert, the way the organization put it on, all of it, even Snoop afterwards, throwing the footballs to the fans and all of that. I thought that was a cool moment. And I thought there was pretty good retention late in the game from the crowd. But I think the performance is what gets me the most excited, right? When you see Nathan Rourke play the way he did, it sure looked a lot like 2022, didn't it? And I know that. We don't want to make that comparison all the time, but when you see a performance like that, it's hard not to. And honestly, for me, what impressed me the most was BC's defense, the way they stopped the run. Because when you look at Edmonton and their running backs, and I know they had an injury along the offensive line, that's their bread and butter. And watching Matthew Betts pressure the pocket, deal with the run, which has not necessarily been a strong suit early in his career. Seeing those elements, seeing how well the defense tackled, especially in the secondary, an area they were really poor at last year. Just to see those improvements on the defensive side of the ball, I think that got me as excited as anything.
Okay, so you touched on this there, but in what ways I know it's very, very early, but in what ways did Saturday's Nathan Rourke remind you of 2022's Nathan Rourke?
Well, just how quick he processed and got from one receiver to the next, and how well he spread the football around, right? Because coming into the year, one of the concerns I had about the Lions offensively was where they were at receiver, right? You knew Justin McInnis would be good. I was confident Keon Hatcher would come back to pre-injury Hatch. And, I've always felt that Katoy has been an underutilized piece, and I thought he'd get more utilized in Buck's offense. But what was going to happen at 4 and 5? You need to have a complete receiving course. So now all of a sudden, Stanley Berryhill took advantage of his opportunities, right? And then also Butler was able to reestablish himself in the ways we saw before. And then the other thing with Nathan, if you go back to 22, Nathan was a little reluctant to run the football early in the season. And I remember asking him about that. And he says, I know I can run the football. I know that part of my game is always there, but I got to learn how to get through progressions and develop that part of my offense. So this time he was pretty ready to run the football, right? And, he took off on some second down situations where the pocket was getting collapsed and got first downs. And, just seeing that part of his game, I just think there's a completeness to his game, which we haven't seen since then.
For me in that opener, it was Rourke, and he took a lot of criticism last year. This
From
guy,
you especially.
Stop it,
exactly.
Guys like you're the most negative guy in the market.
Rourke
Anyways, listen, I'm just so happy. This guy had a great offseason. From everything we were told, not at training camp, but before that. He was working at the Surrey facility, but it's just great to see that this guy said, you know what, I'm going to put everything that happened in the NFL behind me, and he really looks like the guy now that NFL teams were looking at when he was hot. But he did all the necessary work, Farhan, to get back to where he used to be.
Yeah, you're right. And one of the things he said to me last week, which was really telling, was, I asked him where the growth is coming. He says, honestly, I care less. And he wasn't trying to say that he cares less about football, but he's caring less about so many of these other things that have been weighing him down. He said when he was in the NFL, it felt like every throw, or at least every practice, could be his last. And when he came back to BC last year, he carried that weight with him. And it wasn't until this offseason that he let go of that. And he realized, I got the backing of the organization. This is my team. So he went out and built relationships, and other things that kind of stressed him out a bit more, he started thinking about less. Like the media in 2022 was a real stress for him. Now it's, whatever. He doesn't take himself that seriously. He doesn't worry about being the face of the franchise, even though he is. And if you watch some of the media obligations he did, or the community obligations he had in the offseason, he looked natural. Whereas before it seemed forced. So on so many levels, he's talked about being a more authentic version of himself, and as a result, his team's going to get the best of that. So I think, Rick, you're totally right that it was the off-field stuff and everything that happened in the offseason, which he's allowed to carry into this year, and we are getting a mature, relaxed version of Nathan Rourke.
Absolutely. All right, the Canucks, we're a couple of weeks away from the NHL draft, July 1st. We're still waiting for the first bombs to go off in terms of roster moves, but it looks like they want to keep Elias Pettersson. They don't want to really move him. What are your thoughts about that?
I get it. If they move Pettersson, they've got to find two centers. And I think they're realizing it's going to be hard enough to find one. Yeah. And, do you want to deal from a position of strength on your back end and make it a weakness like they did the other way around last year when they traded JT Miller, and all of a sudden they made their defense better with Marcus Pettersson. So I get why they feel their odds are greater if they can try to rebuild this player into the guy he was. We talked about Nathan Rourke looking like he was in 2022. Wouldn't we love to see Pettersson look like he was 18 months ago? And I get that it's a different ask, but maybe they've learned some things in the first month of the offseason from what Pettersson's been doing thus far that make them more confident. Maybe they realize it's a more complicated transaction, right? All of those things are going to come to play. So whether you're Pettersson or whether you're Demko, right, there's a gamble, right? I mean, and Rutherford has talked about that with Demko, that he's going to have to take some risk, and we're going to have to take some risk in terms of what the term of that contract looks like to see if we can get him back to a level. And I think they're going to have to take some risk on Pettersson, because if you wait until July 1st or and that no trade kicks in, there's huge risk. But I think they believe right now it's worth the gamble.
How impressed are you with what the Abbotsford Canucks are up to, Farhan?
Isn't that fun? I was there for the last game, for Game 6. Against Texas, and the crowd was so into it, and I feel great for Manny. And this is a bad decision that they went with Foot and not Manny and all this stuff. I'm not making that. Manny's going to land on his feet, and he's going to get a head coaching job in the NHL soon enough, and good for him, because I've known him for a long time, and he's a great guy, and I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for his family that he's having this kind of success. But just to see the amount of contributions from so many other players in that lineup, and a team that really believes in what they're doing right now. They get a late goal down 2-0 going into the third period, and they carry that over and just went into the third period saying, no problem, we got this, even though they're the team facing elimination. Get the first goal, get another goal at 7 minutes to go. It's a confident group, and I know Charlotte is really good with back-to-back sweeps in their series, but I don't put anything past this Abbotsford team, right? And there's some players on that team that you have to wonder, right? Like if you're the Canucks, do you take a longer look at Max Sasson as potentially a third line center that might allow you to elevate some guys? Is there some internal improvement that can happen here? Because Malhotra and Ryan Johnson have done such a good job developing here. Even Danila Klimovic in that game, who didn't get on the score sheet, generated offense and made some dynamic things happen. I know how much harder it is at the NHL level, but between a guy like that and certainly Archer Shilov's, like all of these players have to make the organization rethink where they're at in terms of some of these guys' readiness for next year. And that's the whole idea of trying to have development, at that level, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know he's older, but Linus Karlsson is, I would say,
sure.
clearly got a spot at the NHL level. Max Sasson has never looked out of place at the NHL level. One more, Farhan. Aaron Rodgers, favorite of yours, is he a fit in Pittsburgh?
I don't get it. Yeah. I don't get it at all, right? Because when you look at Mike Tomlin and the way that organization is structured and built and what their philosophies are, it would seem to be the antithesis of the attention and drama around Aaron Rodgers. And for a player who could spend that much time away in the offseason before making a decision, when he really had no other options, right? Like, sign the damn deal. And he waited until right before OTAs. I just think it's Mike Tomlin selling his soul to the devil, right? In terms of just a guy that's not fully in, and Mike Tomlin wants you to be in. So I don't like it, but he's going to play. We'll see what it looks like. Rodgers and DK Metcalf. I'm not seeing great things for the Pittsburgh offense.
Yeah, at least he's showing up at training camp. Well, we think he's going to show up at training camp versus the start of the season. So we'll give him that. Farhan, thanks for this, my friend.
Well done, Quinn. Take care of these guys, would you?
Hey, the segment's not over yet. We'll see how it goes. Thanks for this, Farhan.
See you guys.
All right.